Hello, I'm Darren again. Today's topic is looking at a narcissistic family. The question asks if I would discuss pseudo-mutuality. Now, pseudo-mutuality is a term that describes an appearance of unity, but is in fact quite toxic, emotionally unhealthy, and often chaotic. The term is used to describe the ways in which a narcissistic family can appear to be closely bonded, loving, in close alignment with each other, even how they bond together in certain situations. Now, that being said, I think that term could apply to any narcissistic collective, particularly one that operates not unlike a cult. The APA Dictionary of Psychology describes pseudo-mutuality as a family relationship that has a superficial appearance of mutual openness and understanding, although in fact the relationship is quite rigid and depersonalizing. To the outside world, they are a cohesive unit, but in reality, they don't really connect with each other. The fraught, tense, bitter relationships are often well hidden from others. So family members are all united in maintaining this image of a perfect family. There's no disagreements, no conflict, which isn't real because we can't all be on the same page every single time. We all have different opinions, perspectives, and preferences. So where there are no differences allowed, no dissenting opinions or thoughts, there's no real connection of any real depth. There's no separate identities. Conflicts are solved by either ignoring them or shutting them down immediately. Problems aren't addressed in a fair, respectful, understanding way. Instead, conflict is generally dealt with through toxic, domineering behavior to establish fear and control within the family. And behind closed doors, there is bullying, bickering, arguing, there's unkind humor, not just to maintain control, but to avoid having to deal with deeper feelings, to avoid emotional closeness. This is known as pseudo-hostility. Family members emotionally injure each other with spiteful remarks, harmful behavior that often has long-term effects. So if that's the case, how does pseudo-mutuality work? How does a narcissistic parent control the family and maintain a sense of unity to uphold the public facade? Well, first of all, by creating unhealthy relationship imbalances in order to divide and conquer. The head narcissist, usually a parent, now a matriarch or a patriarch, thrives off relationship imbalances. They create a hierarchy in the family. That's where we often see roles such as golden child, scapegoat, enabler, and so on. The hierarchy, the roles, often make the relationships quite disjointed and fractious. The narcissist pits the other family members against each other by sowing confusion, fear, envy, and chaos. That division makes it easier for them to control everyone. Everyone is loyal to the narcissist, not necessarily towards each other. Secondly, they control through triangulation, and this involves indirect communication. Triangulation brings another party into a conflict in order to either gain support or sympathy or perhaps just to belittle their victim. For instance, if that parent has an issue with one of the others, they discuss it with someone else rather than the person themselves, knowing the contents of that conversation will be fed to their target. Messages are carried between people rather than being communicated directly. This seems to be more about controlling the conflict rather than resolving it, because bringing other people into it can have the target feel as if they're being ganged up on, as if they're being mobbed. But there is also triangulation amongst the siblings. The narcissistic parent often plays children off each other, comparing them unfavorably. It creates unhealthy competition, and the effect of this can be the other families feel disconnected from each other. They bicker among themselves, like all siblings do, I guess, but this would be more vindictive, passive aggressive, even scathing. And the conflict between them often distracts from the narcissist's abusive behavior and allows them to stay in control. Then there is enmeshment. Here we see a lack of boundaries. There's little to no privacy. The children, family members aren't allowed their own space. No secrets. So failures, insecurities, fears are often shared openly with others in order to punish and humiliate. The children, usually one of them in particular, are treated more like an adult, a substitute partner. They have to problem solve like an adult, collude with the narcissist schemes, give the narcissist whatever reassurance they constantly need. If boundaries were respected, if the family members were allowed any personal autonomy, they might see the reality of the cult that they live in. So questions, challenges are often met with aggression, passive aggression, and ultimately punishment. We also see emotional manipulation. Most narcissists are generally aware enough to know that their behavior is wrong, even though they think they may be entitled to behave any way they want. So they hide it by pretending to be caring, loving, virtuous, and fair. Now, even though those within the family unit do get to see the narcissist's venomous side, they are still manipulated. And this involves a constant emotional push pull of both positive and negative reinforcement, which creates upset, fear, envy, as well as moments of reward or even just relief. They become trauma bonded. Now, another very common tactic that narcissists use to unite those around them is by creating a them and us mentality. The narcissist can unite a group against a common enemy of some kind. Now, it could be someone who's maybe just wounded their ego, maybe it's an ex partner. And I think that's often where we see things like parental alienation, turning the kids against the parent, turning the other parent into a villain. Or it could be against the scapegoat of the family, the child who is blamed for all the family's misery. The scapegoat, I think, is often the child who doesn't really quite fit in, doesn't really believe the lies. But a common effect of being scapegoated in a family is that child being led to believe that they are actually the problem. They must be, because nothing they do is right, and everybody seems to hate them. It's also not uncommon for the target to maybe be an outsider who comes into the family, perhaps a son or a daughter in law, someone who maybe can see them for what they are, doesn't really buy into the lies, someone who will never be one of them or could expose them. But really, it could just be anyone they envy, anyone they feel they have no control or influence over. But the them and us mentality creates a clear division between the family unit and whoever their target is, and acts like a bond that holds them all together. So they are united against the target. The target is treated as if they're a threat to all of them. It is someone who is worthy of all of their venom. So there is slander, there's gossip, insults, having digs, making jibes, looking for any kind of error, fault in the target that they can exploit, something that might actually win them favor with the narcissist. Lastly, the reason why these tactics work so effectively by creating both misery and conflict, yet still be able to present a united front, is because narcissists are generally highly skilled at hiding how they really are in public. Narcissists have very fragile egos and can't accept that they may not actually be perfect, they may not be wonderful, or perhaps maybe at some point in their lives they have done something wrong. So they always present this image that it is everyone else who is at fault. They'll frame narratives that leave out certain details, not only to vilify their opponents, but also to keep their delusions alive. The images they portray often fly in the face of what their victims claim, so who's going to believe it? As I've often said, narcissistic families tend to behave as if they're a cult, in the sense that there is a sense of identity, there's a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, but at the cost of individuality, autonomy, even emotional growth. At an early age, many children are brainwashed into having to believe the lie. Like all cult leaders, narcissists teach their children, you're okay when I'm okay, image is everything. So there's no real depth. Different members of that family, they live the lie for many different reasons. Sometimes it depends on their role, maybe it depends on their age, but it's been normalized for their whole lives. They've been conditioned to believe that it's all true. So they live that lie. Sometimes it's out of fear of the narcissist rage. Sometimes it's out of shame. They don't want others to see the reality of what they have to cope with. But the thing about children are they aren't children forever. Sooner or later they grow up. But like all cults, you're not allowed to leave. There are consequences. Autonomy, self-determination is a threat to any cult, so any signs of it from any of the members is often met with resistance. And it can be painful. Some victims have been so enmeshed they fear maybe losing the regard or facing the wrath of the very person or very people that use and abuse them. And when one of those members, maybe it's the partner or perhaps one of the grown-up children, whenever they do challenge the narrative, the behavior, or they decide to leave, go no contact, they're not going along with the delusion anymore, or they maybe expose them somehow, then they get punished by everyone. And it's back to the them and us mentality. The rest of the family unite against the common threat. There's maybe silent treatment, there's been ostracized, there's vindictiveness, callousness, smear campaigns, or even the withholding of resources. Now, if the whole family, or indeed everyone else they have lied to, is siding with the narcissist, that person can't feel as if they're being outnumbered, they're isolated. Everyone hates me, maybe I am actually at fault here. They may begin to question and doubt themselves. Now, I'm a big believer in exceptions. There are always exceptions. There are times when the adult children do become more aware. As they grow older, they start to form other healthy relationships. And sometimes some of them, maybe all of them, unite together in support of each other against the narcissistic parent. But maybe that's a video for another time. So that's a brief outline of pseudo-mutuality and pseudo-hostility. As always, I'm sure there's many things I could have added, many things I've forgotten to add. Please feel free to use the comment box below. There are some interesting conversations started around these videos. But if you find this video interesting, if you find it helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.